remember waking up really early in the morning, and I remember the sun beaming through our bedroom window.
I thought it was like baptism. I thought they're gonna wash me with all this traditional medicine.
It's something we've been getting ready from a very young age. They put a big table on the patio and there was lots of people watching.
She took out the razor blade and I started to panic straight away. I started to scream.
The next thing I was lying on the floor and there's this huge woman, very big. She sat on my chest. I didn't stop crying.
I felt every single cut, pull, stitching. I felt it. I felt the whole thing.
I had the most pain. I can't explain it. It felt like I was burning.
Oh, it's indescribable.
I was screaming so much, I just blacked out.
Okay. I've done this actually a few times, but this is quite special. I've spoken at many platforms about FGM and many places, and I work in Africa. But when I will speak about this particular issue, it's never been with such a big audience. So this means a lot to me as the daughter of Africa, so thank you for bringing me to this stage. Thank you. And obviously for the Oslo Freedom Forum and the Nelson Mandela Foundation for creating this space for, I guess, disruptors like myself, who's from Africa. I thought it's important that you all understand where I come from. I actually come from a lineage of Somali feminists. I wanted to show you guys this particular image. This is a particular very famous photo of Somali women who were out marching to free Angela Davis. So when you hear Somali women are oppressed, they were not active, they were not socially engaging, they were. My grandmother was part of the women who organized this march, and my mother was a young child, so we were engaged in social activism. Let me give you a little bit of my childhood. I come from a very, I guess, as you would say, privileged Somali family. Both grandparents were doctors. My parents were educated. My dad was an engineer. We lived in Saudi Arabia. That's actually a picture of me and my mom in the middle of the deserts of Saudi Arabia. In case you haven't noticed, she's not wearing a hijab in that picture. But we lived in a compound because he was working for an Italian company. It's okay when it's different people in a desert. And that's me and my sister. That picture was actually taken before FGM actually happened. That picture is very important to me because it actually shows the naivety, the innocence of these very smiley children who are actually not aware of what's going to happen in a couple of days' time. Female genital mutilation, for those who actually don't know what it is, it's when you're partially or totally removing the female genitalia. The reason I showed that video, it's to show FGM is a global issue for one, and those were all British women. They look African to you, but those are British citizens. And for me, it's important people understand when we say female genital mutilation, it means you remove the whole labia, you remove the whole clitoris, you remove the small labia, and the remaining skin is pulled together, stitched to the bottom, and you're left with a small opening. I guess I consider myself to be one of the lucky ones. Me and my sister were very lucky not to have that particular type. But over millions of women are suffering with this. And here, actually, I wanted to thank Yusuf. After Yusuf, I didn't think I should have just come down and told you. I think he kind of gave you what FGM actually is. And I guess for me, South Africa was very important because in the stats by WHO, they don't actually show South Africa. And as a clinician, I'm a counselor by practice, a psychotherapist. And I see a lot of women from South Africa, but women in South Africa, their genitals are not actually cut it's pulled. I see a lot of women from Zimbabwe, so what they do, they pull the labias and the clitoris. It has to be, from what I was told, the same size as the penis, because men find this attractive. So, basically, for me, the accidental campaign has started when Ferouz was born, my daughter, nearly 16 years ago now. So it was through that experience, even though I didn't have the worst type of FGM, during the pregnancy was actually quite a traumatic experience. But I think it's important to understand how big this problem actually is. Over 200 million women have undergone FGM. 92 million alone have undergone FGM in Africa. 3 million are at risk every single year. And by the way, this is just the tip of the iceberg. These are women who went through hospitals, who are in camps. So imagine those who live in rural areas where they have no access to health. So we're missing a lot of women from this particular stats. Where I come from, in the UK, 137,000 women are living with FGM. 66,000 are at risk every year. 500,000 of European women have undergone this practice. And currently in the US, 500,000 women are also have undergone the practice, but with the new stats that will be coming out, they already estimated 1.5 million women in the US have undergone the practice. And every 11 seconds, a girl will be cut. If any of you are mathematicians here, I would like you to count how many girls would have been cut by the time I come off that stage. Jennifer Bourne is a very special woman to me. She was the first person that actually had this conversation with me. Her first question was, I understand you're from a practicing community. Have you undergone this? And my response was, of course I did. It's my culture. It was fine. I didn't have the worst type. I didn't have problem having sex or urinating or having a menstrual cycle like the other women. And she said, what was your pregnancy like? And I said, it was a fucking nightmare. I mean, that was the exact words they used. And I said, I hated every time someone vaginally examined me. Do you know why? She said, you were having flashbacks. The moment anyone came with the instruments between my genitals, my body remembered. Jennifer and I, 15 years later, we still work together. And we do very great pouting, in case you haven't noticed. For me, coming to Africa is so special, especially South Africa, because one of my biggest mentors, in the world of any movement, we need to remember those whose great shoulders we stand on. Efwa Dokunu, if you don't know Efwa Dokunu, I absolutely urge you all to go and find out about her work. She was a midwife, an academic, but she really led the anti-FGM campaign globally. She really fought with politicians, cutters. I mean, this woman kicked ass. I mean, that's the only way I can describe her. Sadly, we lost Efwa in 2014. And coming here to Johannesburg, that's why I'm wearing a kente, the Ghanaian kente. Yes, is to give her... I stand on her shoulders, absolutely. If it wasn't for women like her, I would not be standing here today. People call it campaigning. I'm not really comfortable with that word sometimes because, we are talking about a form of child abuse. Child abuse should be our everyday life. We need to protect children from child abuse. It shouldn't be a campaign. Campaign, it's, I don't know, maybe like something like saving a plant. I don't know, that is a campaign. Maybe some people, it's bigger than that. But for me, educating the next generation is absolutely key to this work because those are the future politicians, decision makers, doctors, policy makers. So part of my work, educating, is very key. But how does Leyla educate? Vagina cupcakes. Hey, don't judge me, okay? I'm British, we like baking, and we are scared of the vagina. So I thought, how do you bring those two together? And for me, really, in case you haven't noticed, I'm a little bit humorous about this, and I think you have to, because, when anyone who goes through trauma, the only way we deal with it is by laughing about it. That's the only way. And for me, the reason I started using the vagina cupcake, really, I realized this was never actually about FGM. This was an attack on female sexuality. Attacking female sexuality, it meant we were torturing women's genitalias. And women didn't even know how their vaginas looked like. So this became a tool for every event, everywhere I went. I mean, I set it up a pink tent in the middle of South Bank in London. It was called the Vagina Tent. It was pink. And I gave out vulva cupcakes. And I invited everybody to come in and have a conversation about vaginas. Because for me, it wasn't about FGM. Because it was about control. I was cut with 200 other million women because we were born as girls. We are not supposed to be sexually free. That's why we were cut. Not because it was a cultural practice. I hate when people use the word cultural. I said to a few people today, I said, cultural practice for me is when we are going to talk about food, drinks, and music, and that's it. The moment you're harming a human being, for me, cultural sensitivity, cultural practice does not exist. This is one of the worst forms of child abuse, and we all need to be outraged about it. For me, outrage is, as you can see, I'm quite pissed off in that picture. I like using it. And I like the head wrap that I'm wearing, it's called shush. Only married women are supposed to wear it, but I'm happily divorced, so I wear it as a sign of protest. I'm protesting about lots of things, in case you haven't noticed. So for me, outrage is absolutely key. We need to be absolutely livid. The fact that every 11 seconds a child's being cut. And I always say it's not about the cutting. Imagine, all of you, go back to when you were 7 years old. Someone came to you, pinned you to a table, spreaded your legs apart. Before they cut you, they just touched your genitals. I would be on the sex offenders list. So the cutting comes after. So a crime was committed against a child before any cutting actually happened. But because of my skin color, apparently there's a different rule for us girls. And I think it's important when we talk about FGM, race is a big part of this conversation. So for me, outrage is absolutely needed. We all need to be pissed off. So basically, I want you to be pissed off by the end of this. And hopefully one day I can bring the cupcakes to Johannesburg. Quick story, I actually tried to smuggle these cupcakes in Ethiopia, but I got caught by the police. I wasn't arrested, thank God for that. Yeah. Go and Google it. There's actually a whole article of it. We gained momentum by using the cupcakes for this documentary, which was one of the clips that I showed earlier. And my aim really, people are so focused, when we talk about campaigning or anything to do with women and girls, we always say, oh, let's talk to community leaders and let's talk to religious leaders. And I'm like, fuck that shit. I'm going after politicians that we voted in. That's their fucking job to do this. I'm sorry, I'm going to drop a couple of F-bombs, and I said vagina, I don't know how many times by now. You all have to be okay with this. I went after the amazing Theresa May. We actually designed a 6-foot vagina costume to chase her down the street, but the lawyers stopped me. We now use it for one of our events. It's called Clit Rock, another band. And we have a booth called Kiss My Pussy Booth. So that's how we raise loads of money for these organizations. Africa, this is your daughter, okay? One of the things we need to realize when we are talking about cultural practices, we are talking about a form of grooming. We were all groomed into thinking this was okay. Not just the girls, the boys too. Boys are forced into thinking the best wife is going to be the one who's got the closed genitals. Listen, I always say it's like a job, okay? You wouldn't hire anyone who didn't have any experience. There you go. So, grooming. Grooming itself is another form of abuse. Until we cut that kind of mentality, FGM is not going to end. And grooming exists everywhere. People say, oh, people who practice FGM, we need to educate them. I'm like, oh my God, these are the most smartest people. They made you think cutting children was okay. Only a freaking intelligent person will make you think that shit, okay? So you're all being groomed into thinking this was okay. So hopefully by the time you walk out of this door, I want you to be really pissed off and start baking vagina cupcakes. And because of the game, I was allowed in Downing Street because, I pissed off a lot of politicians, as I did with my... So, yeah, when they found out I was trying to chase Theresa May with the vagina costume, David Cameron said, you know what, actually come and talk to me instead. As you can see my excited face, I was like, yay, you can do this without being violent. And we changed some policies. It's not great. The government agreed to pay more money. There was an inquiry that was launched against the UK government. So don't think baking a cupcake is not going to get you any change. We actually went after the UK government, and they had to come and give evidence to this girl. Oh, that was the best day. when senior politicians had to answer to me. It was brilliant. I think it's important to realize FGM is a global issue. Our campaign in the UK meant other women came forward that we were never even thinking of. FGM is practiced in the US. As you can see, my friend Renee, we're now friends, and she's one of my sisters. Renee is a white woman from the US, Midwest, professional family, but it was part of her church, apparently. But she didn't know other FGM survivors existed. It's also practiced in Russia. So, having such platforms means we are opening doors for other women and girls to come forward. How do we do that? We have to start creating safe spaces. As I said, I'm a serial manipulator. I just give you cupcakes to come to me and I'll convince you. As a psychotherapist, for me, creating a safe space for us to have a dialogue to understand that FGM is abuse. Remember, I said to you, I didn't even know it was wrong. That was the whole issue. So for me, creating these spaces are absolutely key. And I'm happy to say I was the first person to set up the first ever counseling service for FGM survivors globally. Because we need that space. We need a place. I don't say healing. Let me tell you, we're not going to heal from this, I promise you. Anyone who's been through trauma, you're not healing. We are learning how to deal with it. That's what we do, and it's to reclaim our sexuality. We recently partnered with a sex shop in our clinic, because the women have learned they can actually still have an orgasm, because the clitoris organ is still inside, ladies. So after our therapy sessions, we have something called the V Cafe. We partner with another organization called Bring Back My Project. And what we do, the women get to sit down and learn about their sensitive areas, and they get to take some vibrators home and try. We get some angry husbands, who call us afterwards. So for me, I don't want to keep this too long, but for me, it's campaigning, creating safe space, not tiptoeing around the subject. I will not negotiate my vagina with no religious leader or community leader. I don't give a bloody... I actually said, this whole thing is about patriarchy. So the next campaign, I would say, or next conversation we should all just say is, fuck patriarchy. That's really where I'm coming from. I want to end with this beautiful little girl. This is Farouz. Actually, she's now taller than me, and she really has a lot of opinions. I raised a radical feminist who's Asperger's. Yes, I raised that child. Actually, I would like to share a story. She actually gave me the permission to share the story. We were holidaying in Kenya over Christmas, and I said to her, "Oh, do you fancy boys?" And she said, "No, they stink." That was her response. And I said, "Well, do you fancy girls?" And she goes, "Oh, no." But she said, "I wish I did, though." And I said, "Oh, okay. What does that mean?" She goes, "Well, Mom, you and my surrogate aunties are like, Meron and Zainab and Mona Al-Tahawi, all these crazy feminists who I have around." She said, "You guys all own your sexuality and your sexual drive. I'm worried that no man's going to satisfy me." She's 15, by the way. Let me tell you, as a mother, the old Somali woman came out for 5 seconds, and I was like, oh shit, did anyone hear me? Did anyone hear this? But actually, it was actually one of my proudest moments as a mother. It was the fact that she wasn't ashamed about her body and sexuality. It's exactly what we all need to drive. That's why we need to invest in our girls. Thank you.